Hello and welcome to another countdown. It's no secret that Pokemon in its default state isn't exactly the most balanced game out there. Although the fact that there are so many Pokemon is definitely cool, the sheer number of them is not exactly helpful for the ease of the game's balance. You essentially have to tweak every single fully evolved Pokemon around every other fully evolved Pokemon, along with a few more. But historically, I find myself doubting that Game Freak really cared about a completely balanced roster. You have to look at some of the older Pokemon and go James Rolfe on them. What were they thinking? At least nowadays, newer Pokemon have a clear intent and designated strategy, even if they're not all good. But anyway, today I'm going to be taking a look at Pokemon that are bad on most measures. Putting them into the field usually isn't a good decision. But these aren't just any normal bad Pokemon. There are Pokemon I like the design of or concept of, but wish they had more in terms of competitive viability. I will also make an attempt at giving ideas for ways to fix these Pokemon and make them more usable. Now, I'm sure some of you might be thinking that I'll be calling your favorite Pokemon bad. And I am. But I'm not insulting their general concept or design today. I'm merely criticizing their performance in competitive play. I like all these Pokemon, I just think they underperform in battles. Kecleon as a Pokemon has a lot going for it. A chameleon Pokemon was too perfect of an idea, and Game Freak was not going to let it just be another gimmick Pokemon. The most notable moment of Kecleon for me was its appearance in Generation 3, where an invisible Kecleon blocks the way into the 4-Tree City gym. Then, you have to push some papers and he eventually moves. Kecleon has pretty crap stats save for its tanky special defense, but like a lot of other single-stage normal types, it has a decent move pool. But what actually sets it apart is its unique ability in Color Change. Color Change is an ability that will change Kecleon's type every time you hit him with an attack. The type he will change to corresponds to what type you hit him with. So if you use Flamethrower on him, for example, he will become a fire type. This is an interesting concept, but overall it's not that good. He can make a decent special wall against some Pokemon in theory, but if that Pokemon has half decent coverage, it really isn't that useful. What you essentially do with Kecleon is give your adversary control over his type and defenses. So although it's a cool concept, it's not that good. Objection! But wait! Kecleon eventually gets the hidden ability Protein, which is famous for actually kicking ass. Protein sort of is the opposite of Color Change, giving Kecleon the unique ability to change his type to whatever move he's using. Wait. Did I say unique? Because although Protein is a really cool ability that gives the Pokemon that's using it the ability to change its type at will, it faces the fundamental problem of competition. Because there's a unique, very popular frog that can do the same shit, and also has stats that knock Kecleon out of the park. So looking at Kecleon, I think he could do with some improved stats. The first thing I was looking at was his great special defense, and I thought that his other defensive stats could have a minor buff. But after using Kecleon, I was more impressed with his offensive move pool than anything. So honestly, I'd like it more to have his offenses buffed. I think an attack of 100 could help, but what I want more is a buff to his speed. I get that his 40 speed is supposed to be a weakness, but it just makes him worse than he needs to be. Just at least 60, okay? Shuckle is, for lack of a better word, a dangerous Pokemon to balance. Because of his sky-high defenses with his weird-ass gimmicky moves, tinkering with Shuckle is like traversing a sparse minefield. I say sparse because most of the time, moves like Power Trick aren't going to really do anything, but you have to consider them when working with a stat spread like Shuckle's. Speaking of stat spreads, Shuckle's stats are like the life satisfaction of a heroin junkie, overwhelming highs with disgusting lows. Although it literally has the best defense and special defense in the game, its atrocious 20 HP essentially makes it just a moderately bulky Pokemon. His lack of a good recovery further cripples him, and his vulnerability to pretty much anything that can wiggle its fingers right makes him really fucking useless. His one niche comes from his unique access to Stealth Rock and Sticky Web, which can be used in tandem to create decent entry hazard pressure. But even then, you'll often fail to get both up, and he has no way of stopping Spanners and Defoggers from destroying all his hard work. Fixing Shuckle is hard because I don't want to take away what makes him unique, and I also don't want to break him. His incredibly unique stat spread is a special thing about him, but if I could, I would look into fixing his HP first. If I can't do that, giving him some sort of recovery option would also be helpful. One thing that always happens when I use Shuckle is that even when he can resist a lot of damage, he is still slowly dying in one way or another, and there's usually nothing I can really do about it. Besides rest, which has its own problems, Shuckle has no access to any form of self-healing. You can give him leftovers, but this still leaves him completely vulnerable to taunt. So let Shuckle heal. I doubt this would make him too hard to kill, and it would still let him have weaknesses while also giving him more flexibility. I don't think anyone disagrees that Stealth Rock is one of the most influential moves in Pokemon for better or for worse. Acting as a form of spikes that can not only hit flying types but also deals different amounts of damage based on the opposing Pokemon's typing, makes it a uniquely powerful move that kinda fucks over a big percentage of all Pokemon. It essentially just on its own acts as a huge fucking thorn in the side of any Pokemon of like, at least one of 4 different types. It is a big reason that Pokemon like Articuno, for example, are so low tier, even with good stats. One of the types Stealth Rock really fucks with is the Bug type. Bugs are already pretty weak, and the existence of all these rocks everywhere only makes things worse for them. And being a flying bug, well, you might as well just fly down to PU because that's the only place you can really get anything done. Vespiquen is a Pokemon with a really cool design and motif, but you think after putting so much effort into finding a female Combee, you'd get something better than the queen bee in battle. Vespiquen is the queen of a beehive. It's time for her to act like it. When a royal makes an entrance, you know they enter, because their dress and demeanor is intimidating and humbling. Vespiquen's entrance into the battlefield should be an event. It should catch the attention of everyone. There should be trumpets blazing. She should come in and suddenly be in control of the battle. However, in reality, whenever she comes in, she immediately dies to Stealth Rock. Besides her vicious Stealth Rock weakness, Vespiquen is held back as well by her shallow move pool. Although she has a few interesting unique moves, none of these are really that good. Attack Order is a 90 base power move with a higher critical hit ratio. It's a bug type Leaf Blade basically. Defend Order is a bug type Cosmic Power, raising both her defense and special defense by 1 stage. Heal Order is a bug type Recover. Attack Order is a decent move and one of her better stab options, but Defend Order doesn't help her too much due to the fact that you'll have to use it several times before she doesn't die when she looks at a pebble. Heal Order is unnecessary when she also has Roost, which heals her for the same amount and also takes away her flying type for a turn, which can help mitigate her weaknesses for a moment. Other than that, her moveset is lacking. Beyond a lack of much type coverage, she doesn't even have a really good flying type stab. Literally, her highest damage flying move is Air Slash, so she needs something. First of all, giving her more moves would be nice. If you want to make her a more defensive or utility-focused Pokemon, I'd recommend giving her possibly Sticky Web. I know bees don't make webs, but neither do cotton candy dogs. Also, Knockoff or Foul Play don't seem too out of character for her. Thinking of a better flying type stab was hard enough, because there are way fewer flying type moves than I remembered. Less so attacks that make sense on her considering she's not a bird. So, Game Freak, make more flying type moves or something. Another thing that would help her is a Mega Evolution, because to be honest, she could really benefit from it. She's already a queen bee and you can take that farther. In fact, some fans have, and there are some cool ass fan-made Mega Evolutions of her out there. A lot of them integrate her relationship with male Combees and I like it. She looks good with all those beta male orbiters. This could also be an excuse to give her a new typing. My recommendation is Bug and Dark. It fits her well. A new ability will help too. Although Pressure helps her pee-pee stall, she's the queen and deserves something her own. The last idea I had was taking Defend Order and completely revamping it into a unique Protect variant, similar to Spiky Shield or King Shield. Perhaps it could do something like King Shield where it lowers the opponent's stats. Castform has a couple things going for it. He has an excellent move pool with all sorts of elements that he can take advantage of. He can shoot fire at you, or shoot sunbeams, or ice beams, or thunder beams. Or he can use a different move that changes type based on the weather. And he can change forms in the weather. Based on the weather conditions that the battle is currently taking place in, Castform will change his form to match the weather. He's able to turn into a fire type for the sun, a water type for the rain, and an ice type for the hail. His formerly unique Weather Ball move gains a power boost and changes type to reflect the weather as well. Wowee! Looks like this guy can fit in any weather team. Except sandstorm teams. Well, it's not all great. First of all, what the fuck are those stats? Whose idea was this? This is some weird shit they used to always fucking do in the old Pokemon games. They make these shitty Pokemon with virtually worthless stats and it leaves me thinking, what was the fucking point? Yeah, let's give this guy a C- in all of his stats. Hey, let's make a flexible Pokemon with an interesting weather mechanic and then give him fucking horrible stats. Because who knows, perhaps Castform would break the game or something. Christ, could they at least give him all 80s? Or an interesting stat spread that looks like it took some time to come up with? Why this garbage? I'm not a pothead, Game Freak. Stop pandering to me. And it's not like his ability helps him. He's a Pokemon that you can use for a shitty team of any weather type. Ooh! You're not going to get anything done with him that you can't do with something else. You can argue that his ability to correspond with the weather can let him switch weather back and forth, but that's a complicated process that isn't worth it. It takes too long and is really easy to just stop. I like Castform though. Some people don't like Castform.
Castform's normal form is none other than a floating pair of testicles.
Stop it, J-Wits. Get your mind out of the gutter. I've always found Castform cute and wanted to use him in my teams, but he sure isn't making it easy. I do have some ideas though. First of all, the fact that he takes damage in sandstorms is gay as hell. You don't have to make him a new sandstorm form, but I think giving him complete immunity to weather-related damage will make a minor difference. And this isn't the only change to the forecast ability I have in mind. I think forecast should also extend the length of the weather Castform summons. Right now, there's no reason to use him to summon weather, and I think he should provide some usage in that role. I don't know if it would be able to stack with the weather rocks, but I think Castform would gain a useful niche from that alone. You should also give him stats that aren't fucking garbage. You may have noticed that most of the Pokemon here are gimmicky. Whether they change during the weather or have absurd stats, these are all Pokemon that are unique by most measures, but still fail to do well in competitive battle. And our number one is no different. In fact, on a scale of gimmickiness, this Pokemon might just be one of the most gimmicky Pokemon ever. And that Pokemon is Shedinja. Shedinja is gimmicky. In order to receive one, you need to evolve Nincada, and you get Ninjask. But if you involve Nincada with a spare slot in your party and a spare Pokeball in your bag, a mysterious bug ghost type named Shedinja also appears in your party. Ooh! Talk about creepypasta shit. Take a look at his stats. And what the fuck? This motherfucker has stats lower than its pre-evolution. 45 defense? 30 special defense? 1 fucking HP? Let's think about this. When Nincada evolves into Ninjask, it loses its shell and as a result its defense stat lowers. This shell becomes possessed and it has a shitty defense stat. But if we look at Ninjask as Nincada without its shell and add Shedinja's defense, which we can look at as Nincada's shell, we get 90, the same as Nincada's defense. Oh, this was better planned than I expected. I was planning to make fun of it, but that's pretty cool actually. Shedinja is a cool concept for a Pokemon just in aesthetics. A possessed fucking bug shell is pretty epic, but what makes him really unique, besides his typing, his concept, his obtain method, his stats, and a whole bunch of other shit, is his ability. Wonder Guard might just be one of the best abilities in all of Pokemon, and you can bet that it's the reason Shedinja's stats are so fucking bad. Wonder Guard makes Shedinja immune to all damage dealing attacks that are not super effective. So unless your attack is fire, flying, rock, ghost, or dark type, Shedinja is literally immune to it. This gives him an incredibly unique ability to be complete non-negotiable wall to a decent amount of Pokemon, and this can be useful in the late game. Because after all, when you're fighting a Pokemon that literally takes no damage from more than 2/3 of attacks, what do? Toxic, Spikes, Toxic Spikes, Stealth Rock, Will-O-Wisp, Whirlwind, Sandstorm, Hail, Leech Seed. Literally any form of indirect damage kills Shedinja instantly. Even when I would use Shedinja against friends as a kid, I still got fucking owned because even though kids don't use indirect damage, every kid uses as many fire and rock type moves as he can. Those are cool types. But if you have a dedicated spinner or defogger, a nice way to change the weather, and the current enemy Pokemon does not have any of the most common attacking types in the game, he might have use. So you can drop Shedinja in and force them to switch out while you do a Swords Dance to try and do a sweep with a boosted Shadow Sneak because he's too slow to do any other move fast enough. So if the stars align, Shedinja can kind of fill the role of Mimikyu, finessing a free turn to try and sweep. Only difference is that Mimikyu doesn't have the worst stats of any evolved Pokemon. All-out attackers in competitive Pokemon are decently rare, and because of this, Shedinja's ability doesn't really do much to help him from easy death. He can still arguably be a late game wall in lower tiers because once you've gotten rid of certain parts of your opponent's team, he can be a lot harder to kill. But with Team Reveal nowadays, your opponent has the ability to make note of your Shedinja and adjust accordingly. So how to improve him? Well, first of all, keeping the 1 HP and Wonder Guard niche is important. Besides possibly helping his only kind of good attack stat, I think giving him a bonus in speed will help, but I think tinkering with Wonder Guard is a decent option. Perhaps you can make him immune to all moves that aren't super effective. This means that he will still be affected by things like Will-O-Wisp, Whirlwind, and other status moves whose types affect him. But I can still see problems here. First of all, this would make him especially annoying to fight, but also he still gets fucking wrecked by entry hazards. Perhaps Wonder Guard can also protect from things like that? I don't know. I really wish Shedinja was one of the better Pokemon in the game, but he's so easy to deal with. He's annoying in the same way a fly is, because you just need to shoo it away and it's not like it can do much to hurt you. I guess that fits his bug type well. Thank you for watching, and I am curious. Do you have any ideas on how to fix Shedinja and these other Pokemon? If so, let me know. I'm curious what you have to say.